Welcome back to today's episode of Cultivating Consciousness, a podcast where we share mind-hacking techniques for everyday people.
To, ideally, reduce some degree of suffering. That's the underlying desire we operate on.
Yeah.
For ourselves and those of you who choose to suffer through listening to us.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way. I know it helps me to be able to have someone to talk to. So thank you.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, I was telling Ian about a really frustrating afternoon I've had, and he helped me realize I'm not completely crazy. So thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome. So we're going to jump back into our topic that we've been working with for the last two podcasts and continue here. I'm going to reference my outline just so I capture these points about the difference between the ill-fated spark of passion and true long-lasting love. And what we've covered so far are some aspects of the fated spark, things like the neurobiology that are in operation, our attachment systems, and how we project our experiences onto others, and also this concept of limerence versus love. The I could lose hours with you feeling often maps to limerence, and it's not fake, but it's phase specific, where deep love widens the narrow spotlight to steady daylight, curiosity, care, repair, and freedom. From there, we went into looking at how rare is this spark, and what's in there, what makes that up, and that this concept that people who report 50 destined connections are usually counting chemistry that's true rather than whole self-fit rare, which is whole self-fit rare, meaning, and the whole self-fit is that the genuine kind of love that has the capacity for long duration. We talked a little about why we pair it all, this between survival, evolutionary stuff, and sociological needs. And today we're going to step into something called the four-lens synthesis. The four lenses that we're going to be referring to are body, heart, mind, and soul. And so we want you to think of deep romantic love as these four interlocking strands. Okay? So the first part of this we're going to dive into is the body part, which I think is often the most intoxicating part. It's referred to as eros, which for those of you that don't know is talking about eros refers to erotic or sexual energy. It includes things at the level of attraction, polarity, novelty, synchronicity. It also would include at the body level things that we talked about before about the kind of the chemical cocktail that we're operating on in this state and how potent that is. I think we kind of talked about it almost like, well, it's not almost like because you are actually on drugs. It's just not ones that you ingested.
You don't buy them. They're produced in the body.
Yeah. And so how those come into play and drive our experience. And one of the ideas about these four lenses is the ability to distinguish aspects of who we are and how we are in romantic relationship. And this core level that we're starting with, which is the body, is the foundational aspect of it, because our body is always the foundation for all the rest of our experience.
And I know that in our last episode, when the spark fades, we started talking about what happens when it fades. But now, just so I heard everything correctly, we're talking about how to move into the sustaining phase, right?
Yeah, because this whole idea about the four lens synthesis is about how we cultivate deep romantic love.
Yeah,
that's the essence or maybe essence. Yeah, maybe that is the essence of deep romantic love. Are these four strands, as it's referring to them, and how they intertwine.
Yeah, our connection. What our connection is composed of. It's comprised of.
Maybe the same thing.
Yeah, I guess that could work. What creates that strong, lasting relationship? I'm kind of breaking that down.
So in this lens, it at the body level. It is this ongoing attraction, a healthy polarity, and that probably deserves a little more attention. That concept of polarity, the ability for novelty to exist and sustain, and synchronicity, which to me, my interpretation of synchronicity is just like right timing, like in this case, we're talking about romantic connection. So there's two people. And it's the synchronicity of those two bodies meeting.
Yeah, and I think synchronicity also comes naturally from relationships in alignment, whether that's our relationship with ourselves or the universe or society or other people or nature. You know, when we're in tune with our environment or we're in tune in our relationship, oftentimes both ends of that relationship produce similar results. Like, hey, I was just thinking about you when you called. You know, that's kind of what came up for me.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And polarity is a big one too, because it's they say opposites attract.
Right. The thing that allows for deep romantic love to evolve and sustain is how do I put that in words? It's when polarity is solid, and it doesn't like shift or fade. And more specifically, what happens a lot when romantic love doesn't last is two individuals enter into a relationship. The polarity starts out clear, and I'm going to use in this case a polarity. There's multiple polarities, but I'm going to talk about like the masculine and feminine roles, where they're initially seem to be clear, but as these two people get to know each other, and maybe more of their challenges in relating start to show up, and may cause an individual to start to shift their polarity away from the pole that they started at. And if one individual's polarity shifts, it forces the other one to shift. And so if that starts happening, then people can become uncomfortable that they're being kind of put into a role that they don't really want to be in or they didn't sign up for.
Oh, what just came up is like maybe during the rose-colored lenses phase, you're attracted to someone for certain reasons, but then you end up realizing that you end up becoming more like a caretaker than a partner. You know, maybe they don't take responsibility for their actions, and then you end up having to do a lot of...
Yes, but that's not necessarily polarity.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what you mean by
I can be more specific.
Shifting.
So, for example, and because I'm male, I have a stronger understanding and perspective of a male's experience. So I'm going to use that as how I help explain this. So a man may enter into a relationship initially. There's feels like synchronicity. There's the chemical cocktail that's in play, and he shows up in a pretty masculine way in that masculine polarity. But as time goes on, and the novelty is wearing off, and what starts to be kind of come up to the surface are the parts of himself, the guy, and the parts of the partner, could be male or woman, it doesn't matter. I mean, man or woman. And they start to create some instability. And in that instability, the man may start to slide out of that genuine, true masculine pole and start to move somewhere towards the pole of femininity. Doesn't mean he has to have gone from one side of the pendulum all the way to the other, but as long as there's a shift of where he's maybe not holding boundaries clearly, for example, that's a masculine trait, holding boundaries clearly. But then he starts to worry about losing the attention or the affection of this partner. And he thinks that if he loosens up on the boundaries, he's not going to push the partner away. So then he's starting to shift away from that solid masculine pole, And as soon as he does that, the partner has to make a shift as well to keep balance.
That makes sense. Why is holding boundaries a masculine trait? Is that not just a healthy human trait?
It is, but it naturally is more a masculine than a feminine trait. And ideally, when we get like fluid in our masculine and femininity, and we can be clear in where we are, then kind of what you're touching on has more ability to show up.
Yeah.
Because ideally, we want to be capable of all the things, all the aspects of who we are.
Well, I was going to say, how do we reconcile that with I'm of the belief that everybody contains both masculine and feminine energy.
Yes, the difference is, are you intentional about it and conscious of where what you're holding, or do you slide into something that isn't? It's more of a survival mechanism, like feeling like if you're in your masculine too much is risking pushing the other away, then you're going to unconsciously protect yourself and decrease how much of that pull you hold to try to soften your connection with the other person, because somehow you've decided or you've perceived like that's creating threat.
Is this sort of like a willow and the wisp? Or the oak. Have you ever heard the allegory, the oak and the willow?
Maybe, but you're gonna have to refresh me.
The oak and the willow. It's a tale that talks about how the oak is strong. It stands there. It can withstand. It's strong. The willow is not so stout, but it's much more flexible. It can bend, and the strength of the oak is that it's so strong, but it's also brittle in its strength. It's unmoving, right? And it's brittle. The willow isn't as strong necessarily, but it is more adaptable because it can bend, right? So what I'm hearing is kind of, I hear you describing sort of a slipperiness if you move in between those without being conscious of it. But then I ask, is that not part of what relationship teaches us? Because, and that can go back into polarity too, because it's like, say, an oak is attracted to a willow. Or if you wanted to compare oak energy to masculine and willow energy to feminine.
I don't know if I would, I don't know if that aligns for me, but go on.
So I don't feel totally clear on what you're getting at in terms of how a relationship can become destabilized if people don't hold on so tightly to their roles?
Yeah. So, for example, let's use a man and a woman. The woman is her likely most deepest desire is to be in her full feminine.
What does that mean?
It's different for everyone, but a lot of people perceive that as like having the freedom to be much more fluid, not to have to worry about boundaries because somebody can help support and hold those for her. Be in a lot of flow.
Like a willow.
Yeah, in this case, yes. But then that for a woman in partnership to feel safe there, the man has to hold that masculine aspect that is the foundation that allows the feminine to be expressed in a clean, healthy way.
That makes sense. But go ahead.
Okay, so then let's say the man, for whatever reason, gets uncomfortable and doesn't think that it's safe for him to stay there in that full, total place of masculinity and starts to consciously slide towards softening how he holds that. And if you're sliding away from the masculine, you're sliding towards feminine, not fully, but there's it because it's a continuum. So then as that slide happens, then the woman no longer feels the stability or security that the true masculine pole was holding to create a space for her that she's feeling held and safe in, which means then she starts to have to create that for herself. Now she's taking on masculine characteristics. Now, that's not always bad if it's intentional and conscious, but what I think this is referring to is when this happens unconsciously.
Yeah.
And then we're moving out of polarity
Yeah.
and what that creates, the dynamics that create it within the relationship.
Yeah, because in relationships, sometimes people are grounded and stable, and sometimes they're not, and that can be that could be either partner. So it's if one's more masculine, usually, their life could get flipped upside down, and then they need support. Like the whole 50-50 paradigm. It's not always 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 99-1.
Right.
That's what I hear in terms of this. Because if you want to, I personally feel like getting into the realm of masculine and feminine gets really kind of foggy because those, that terminology, especially anymore, is gotten kind of blurred on a societal level. But also, I don't feel like it helps me really understand, like on a practical level, what it looks like. So that's why I ask for more like, what does that look like? What does that look like? Because again, all I see in relationship is a total fluid, oftentimes, I've seen males that are really stubborn and rigid, but they're also really brittle because if anything about that rigidity gets questioned, now they're off balance within themselves. And then, their partner might be more compassionate, caring, forgiving, accepting, and they call on their partner to say, hey, lighten up, right? That to me is sort of a leaving the polar, poles of roles, right? But I think that's kind of the effect relationships have, and in terms of polarity, I think opposite natures like that can often be a teacher too, and not necessarily like a completely destabilizing
When you're conscious
aspect.
When you're conscious of it.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's the whole difference.
Yeah.
Is are we aware and conscious of what's playing out, or is it just happening in the background?
So it also makes sense in terms of being aware of these 4 pillars and garnering awareness around polarity specifically is to understand what you're attracted to and why. That, your attraction to a particular type of energy in a person could be a void being filled. It could be a part of you that is repressed. Or it could be something that genuinely makes you feel safe, probably because that's what made you feel safe at a much younger age.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many possibilities of what it is, what attraction could be. And I think you're landing on something which makes sense to me, which is probably so much of that is generated out of our very early experiences, what we did get, what we didn't get.
Yeah.
And what we're still trying to get. And maybe then we start trying to get that from a partner. But then that leads into, that's not going to be this though, because what we were talking about here, remember, is deep romantic love that's sustained. We're looking at the strands that weave together in this 4-lens model that actually create the durability of the deep romantic love.
So talking about it from sustained level, then it would be important to understand why you're attracted to someone and understand your own capacity for what you're attracted to in yourself.
Yeah, that I think is important. Yes, I think that's a great point.
And understand how that ebbs and flows and if it's conscious or not in the relationship. Because oftentimes we're attracted to people because we're inspired. Right? If I'm really shy, I could be oftentimes you have the really quiet introverted partner and then the super extroverted partner. It's because they admire that part that they don't necessarily feel might be alive in themselves, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes I think the most sustainable relationships are complementary, not necessarily parallel or an exact copy, but they're complementary, right? Like my strengths could help support your weaknesses and your strengths help support my weaknesses.
I think that's where you may already have gone into the second lens, which is heart. And remember that like these are 4 separate strands, but they all have to be woven together for the fabric to work for deep romantic love.
Was there anything about that first, the body, attraction, polarity, novelty, synchrony? I feel like novelty is an important one to talk about too, and attraction, because But is there anything else you'd like to say on those points?
No. I think all four of them are important to understand, or what go into in this model making up the body.
Yeah.
Strand.
One thing I want to talk about with novelty is that novelty is really important. It's just important for the human experience, for a sustained relationship to happen. Because if a book's not a book if it's the same chapter over and over again, right? We'll read it and we'll get tired of it, and then we'll start to resent it because familiarity breeds contempt.
Yep.
Right? So a way to foster novelty is in a sustained relationship, there needs to be a space held for growth. And that can be really scary. That will shut down unhealthy relationships.
Yep.
If you're out there and you find that your growth is shutting your partner down, that needs to be looked at with a critical eye, because it's not healthy. Sustained relationships will celebrate the growth of both individuals.
Well, but it goes directly to the point of attraction. Like, if that's happening in a relationship, somebody's growing and it's shutting down the other partner, then there's been a loss of attraction, because that growth is not attractive to the partner who's getting shut down.
Well, and the partner that's shut down has to, if in a healthy, sustained relationship, then they'll look at why. And if they're stagnant, then that's just an unhealthy aspect of any existence. Whether it's a relationship with self or a relationship with someone else. So it does all fit together for sure. But there has to be if it's not a genuine part of the relationship, it won't be a healthy, sustained,
absolutely
loving relationship.
Right. And that's what this model's saying. They all have to be equally woven in. So, do you feel complete on body?
I feel like I could talk about it a lot more, but
I think we're going to be
in honor of the 4 points. We can move on from it right now. In the heart.
Good. So under the heart lens, it speaks about attachment versus compassion. So safety, care, co-regulation, and repair. And those to me are really, 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 really big.
Totally.
And if they fade, that the relationship isn't going to be able to be sustained. The love itself won't sustain.
Yeah, if you don't feel safe in a relationship, what does feeling safe in a relationship mean? To me, it means feeling safe being yourself, feeling your feelings authentically, and knowing that you won't be rejected for your genuine nature. And you are safe being vulnerable.
Yep. I agree with all that. I think another thing that safety encompasses, again, like we were talking about consciousness here, is like we all carry some degree of burden of trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that a big piece of safety is lost when an individual or both individuals within the relationship are not accountable and responsible around their trauma.
Yeah.
And so they're just allowing it to run unchecked and without ownership, and then that creates an immense burden on the other, and it destroys safety.
And one thing I've seen that is incredibly unhealthy is is dismissal. So one partner will be expressing things that come up from trauma, and the other partner, I've heard things. Maybe you've heard this, and you're listening. You've heard things like, "Oh, grow up." Oh, you should be grateful for, we should always be grateful for what we have, but dismissing what the other's going through but saying something like, "Oh, grow up," that's devastating. Oh, shove it down a little deeper. Why don't we just say that?
Well, I think that's where it comes down to. My guess is that response, if somebody's getting that response, it's likely coming because the other partner has been projecting their trauma without ownership or consciousness, and the person that's saying, "Oh, grow up," has been receiving that projection or having it put on them that isn't theirs to carry, and then it builds resentment and burden.
That is 100% a reality. I think the other area that can come from is if the partner saying, "Oh, grow up," never had the opportunity to be vulnerable and safe in their upbringing and relationships, and that's how they've learned to deal with big emotion.
Right.
So
And-
neither are a healthy.
No, right.
dynamic.
And then that's interesting because then that goes to the compassion piece where, well, compassion isn't even accessible because it was never fostered.
Yeah, love, true love, I read once, is only possible through understanding. So if you dismiss or make small, you're not understanding. And that's not real love. So if you feel intoxicated by your partner, but they don't want to hear about your deep inner things.
Yeah. Well, it should be raise a question.
Yeah.
It should be something to question.
Yeah. Because the ultimate reality is people can only meet you as far as they can meet themselves. So oftentimes people treat others that way because they don't have the capacity for it in themselves. So they might be dismissive because they dismiss it with themselves. So it's, there's a lot to navigate there.
Oh, yeah. That's the intricacies of being human. Anything else you want to speak to on heart?
Well, I really like co-regulation and repair. Those are just incredibly important. Co-regulation to me is we are all responsible for how we show up and our emotional response to the stimulus we receive. So I don't prescribe to the idea that there's any inherent meaning to the events in our life other than what we apply to them. And it's it's not an intuitive concept. It wasn't for me when I first heard it, but I genuinely believe it is I'm gesturing at Ian right now. You could punch me in the face.
Really?
And a lot of people would say, oh, that gives me a reason to be angry. I actually choose to be angry in that moment. It could be a huge cocktail of chemicals that come up from that experience, but it is actually my responsibility for how I react to any given stimulus, right? That's not intuitive to everybody. One prolific disease in our societal makeup is victim mentality.
Yep.
Right? So we thrive on blaming someone else and not taking responsibility for how we feel and why we feel it. So co-regulation means, if you're listening right now, are you in a relationship where you're constantly being blamed for how someone else feels, or do you do the blaming, right? We are responsible for regulating our emotions alone in a healthy relationship before we depend on the other to help us regulate said emotions. It's a huge luxury and blessing to have someone to regulate with, but ultimately we are responsible for regulating our own emotions first before we're able to co-regulate the emotions of a relationship. That's what that means to me.
Yeah, to me, I think co-regulation is multi-levels of regulation. So it could be as simple as like physically there's a co-regulation that happens when you're with somebody. At this level, it's talking about the heart. So is there a co-regulation in heart to heart about how we're meeting the other? And does that meeting help to bring us together, which would be the co-regulation, or it's not attraction any longer and it's repulsion, and then there's dysregulation.
Yeah, is one person regulating and one is not regulating.
Right, something like that. To me, that's what I'm getting at a regulation. And then I think what's interesting as I read this, I also realize there's a hierarchy here. So like for the heart to stay engaged, first has to feel safe. It has to be able to experience and offer care. Then, and if it can do those two things, then it's safe to regulate, to co-regulate. And if we can do those three things, then there's the capacity and space for repair.
Yeah. Repair is an integral part in a healthy, sustained relationship, because truth is, and it's a huge misconception that, when you feel this chemical cocktail of the fated spark, that you'll be able to weather any storm and everything will be perfect because this feeling is so perfect and how could it ever go sour? Well, guess what? It goes sour.
Absolutely.
Right? Humans are essentially really advanced produce, right? We're like, and we literally grow mold like in our bodies, right? We get funky. We have ideas that infect our mind, right? And things will go sideways even in a healthy, sustained relationship. The key, though, to why they're healthy and sustained is that both partners have the capacity for working together to repair the damage that was caused by
Right, because
things that go sideways.
they're both working to manage safety, care, and co-regulation.
Yeah.
I think that has to
Yeah.
be jointly. If it's not jointly done, it can't. The rest can't happen. And it's like if you can't jointly create safety, then you can't jointly
Yeah.
care, and if you can't jointly care, then you can't jointly regulate.
Yeah.
So
I think a good
it's
example.
really important.
Yeah.
I think also the thing that you were saying about having this belief of true love is going to overcome everything. I see that as just such a infantile perspective of it. Like it's such a fantastical way of looking at it.
It feels like that in the beginning. So I can relate to I know.
Again, it's the meaning that we're giving it.
Right. But I think only through experience do you realize that it gets back to that point that love is only a part of a healthy, sustained relationship.
Right.
But I just wanted to give credit to the way it feels in the beginning because that overwhelming, the spark
back to
feeling does make it feel like everything is possible because we have this feeling.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But I think one thing that came up for me, like in the co-regulation repair part, is a super common example of a way to, at least in a part of co-regulation, is say you get into a heated argument. For both partners to be, in a healthy, sustained relationship, both partners will say, "Hey, I am way too charged right now to have this conversation. Let's take a 10-minute or 24-hour break before we try to come back to this and repair it." Because that's a good example of co-regulating.
But it is, and that's a
part
very
of co-regulation.
intentional, conscious act to seek individual regulation.
Yeah.
So they could come together regulated, so that then there's a place that repair is possible.
And an example of not co-regulation in an unhealthy dynamic would be, and this goes for a lot more. This goes for a lot of areas in life in terms of relationship. But if say two people are in a really heated argument, to identify with those emotions and then blame the other for those emotions and say, "Well, I am so angry at you, therefore you are no longer what I want in life because you make me feel this way." That's not regulating. That's blaming. That's dysfunction. Right. I don't think that's real. Like, yes, it feels that way when you're going through it. But I think zooming out, you have to understand that emotions are a result of stimulus and not a makeup of our identity. It can become, well, that's a whole nother topic. But if we identify too much with emotions, then we will become engines that endlessly create those emotions for ourselves, which is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're hitting on there is just this idea of, can we even differentiate in our language between being angry, or I am angry, and I feel angry.
Yeah.
And few people do it well, where they're constantly holding the emotion as an experience, as opposed to who they are, or what they are.
Yeah, or this is the way my life is. This is the way everything is. It's just, it's just. I like to think of emotions like clouds in the sky. We are not the clouds; we are the sky, and those emotions blow through.
Cool. You want to say anything more on heart, or move on to mind?
I think I'm good on heart right now. And again, this is all, we're talking about what it looks like for a healthy, sustained relationship. Obviously, there's a lot to all this, but we're just in the name of staying on topic.
Definitely. And remembering that each of these 4 interlocking strands are what the theory here is that weave together for that to exist.
Yep.
So we've covered the first strand is body, the second strand is heart. We're going to move to the third strand, which is mind, and that comprises of things like meaning, shared narratives, truth-telling, and compatible life logistics.
Yeah.
So Shared narrative. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think one thing that I've seen come up in relationship is I think it's super common for, say you text your partner and they don't text right back. Then you sit there and come up with a million reasons why they're not texting back. And then you're super angry at them because you've created this huge narrative of how they're ignoring you and they're talking to someone else. And then that means that, you're not a priority and all this stuff happens. And then they text you back and say, hey, sorry, I was in the bathroom or doing, I was really busy with doing something. It had nothing to do with any of the reasons of the narrative that you came up with. So a shared narrative, I think in that realm, it's extremely important for each partner not only to understand the narratives that they create in their own mind, and then how those narratives line up or not line up. And it's kind of like a huge reality check for how much we live in our own mind and what's actually happening in reality in the relationship.
Right.
That's kind of what came up.
And to me, this being the strand of the mind, which is like our brain, I think that shared narrative has to exist outside of us and outside of our brain, which I think is maybe why truth-telling follows this, because for there to be a shared narrative, it has to be expressed. Like we have to be in some communication around it for us to align on that narrative.
Totally.
And that can only come from truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been several instances where simply being able to express how you feel can reveal, or I guess that kind of goes back to being able to repair, but it's really important to know what narrative you're creating or carrying.
I think what, as I'm hearing that, what's really important is to understand, is this your narrative?
Right.
Or our narrative?
Right. That's what I was trying to get at with what happens in your own mind versus what's actually happening. And
I think the way we get it to be ours is only through, authentic sharing or truth-telling.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't really matter what it is, but if you don't share it, then there can't be a reflection back around truth to that narrative, or maybe it is, I think a better way to look at it is like, is that match reality or is that some alternate reality of your own?
Totally. Well, I feel like my brain is blanking because I'm tired, but one thing that came up too is potentially like in a unhealthy relationship, codependency happens where I think one partner or both can create a narrative around what's happening and continue to live in that narrative in a way to ignore or distract from what's actually happening.
Yeah, that's not a shared narrative then, is what you're saying.
Right. Or it could be an unhealthy shared narrative. Like both people prescribe to the idea that they're, maybe a certain type of person that only deserves a certain type of life, and they both take refuge in that narrative because neither one has the capacity to grow or challenge their beliefs or something like that.
I guess that would be a shared narrative then.
Yeah. So obviously we're talking about what a shared narrative looks like in a healthy, sustained relationship. I just brought up what it could look like in an unhealthy, codependent relationship. But I think for a healthy, sustained relationship, one of the most important points to me was that you need to understand, is it my narrative or is it actually what's happening? Because what's actually happening, if both people are in tune with it, would then become a shared narrative in a healthy way. We both understand what's going on and what the implications of, what our behaviors are, how our behaviors interact with each other. And either amplify or shut down certain aspects, negative or positive, that are happening in the relationship.
Right. Cool. Then the third point here is this concept of compatible life logistics.
Long distance relationships are hard.
Yep. And I want to say that for some people, it's healthier.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it's for everybody. It's probably not for most of us, but there are some people that thrive in that. But that then is referring to a compatible logistic of life.
Yeah.
Like, that works for those two people. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Because it still is a compatible life logistic, where for somebody else that just may not work, and therefore the possibility of relationship is off the table.
Totally. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, if, are you the one that always drives over to their house? Are you the one that always initiates? Are you the one, are they the one? Those are indicative of an unhealthy relationship. A healthy, sustained relationship will have two partners that can sustain their own energy in order to sustain the relationship.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have anything more to say about that. Do you?
I don't feel like I do either. I think the narrative term is really poignant for me, because I think it's really easy to live in our own head. I know it is for me. And that's super detrimental most of the time. Because it's really easy to create narratives about why someone's behaving a certain way, and then get angry at them without even hearing their stance on it or viewpoint. And that goes into the truth telling. Being able to name it, being able to identify and say, I feel this way, when this behavior is exhibited. What's going on there? And in a healthy, sustained relationship, both partners will show up for that conversation.
Right. In a way that it can be heard.
Yeah.
And that gets into things like nonviolent communication, and then a whole bunch of other stuff that are tools.
We practice that.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good on mine. And I mean, meaning, one thing that came up with that is, my mom always said that a relationship based on desire won't last, and I've totally said this in this podcast, but again, a relationship based on desire won't last, but a relationship based on purpose oftentimes will. So it's, I think
That's interesting, because that is pretty much encompassed in the soul section.
Oh, cool.
I think. So, soul, the lens of soul, that is a concept around the sense of transcendence. So it includes things like awe, devotion to something larger, and then examples of what that might be are art, service, or spirit. And then that's what I think you were sort of starting to touch on.
Yeah. That's meaning, or, transcending the relationship and having something bigger than just the relationship is super important and critical when things get hard. That's what helps hold relationships together when there's a lot of force pushing the partners apart. Whether that's one partner growing rapidly and the other not growing as quickly. Maybe that's just a newfound disagreement on something pretty big in life. Maybe it's something happens in life that creates a rift, maybe financially, or, one partner loses a job, or who knows what. I mean, there's a million things that happen in life that life seems to rip and tear.
Yep.
So having something bigger to be inspired by, being devoted to a shared goal, devotion is a really powerful word for me.
Totally. Right. And I think really this is speaking to this aspect of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And in this case, in relationship, so it's bigger than ourselves individually and the relationship as well. I've often thought of relationships as having three components to them, and it's the two individuals as two separate components and a shared third component that the relationship is on it's like it's its own entity within the relationships. There's like three different entities.
Yeah.
And being able to be in touch with something that's beyond that, beyond all three of those.
Totally. And we owe it to ourselves as individuals to have something bigger than life that we believe in. Service, spirit, because that also enriches our own life. I don't think it's healthy for an individual to make someone the whole encompassing goal of their life. Maybe that's different for a parent to a child for a period, right? But then ultimately there's a phase of the parent needing to let go of the child so that they can become their own person, right?
Right. I want to be clear here that children are not in this category in them of themselves. I think they can be, but that doesn't take you out beyond the relationship. That's just another relationship. So it's not as big as something like they use as a reference here, like art, service, or spirit.
I'm trying to clarify what I mean by what it means to have something bigger in life than just the other person. And there was a caveat to that because parents do oftentimes devote their life to their child, and that's healthy for a period.
Okay, yeah.
In a loving, healthy, sustained relationship, two partners need to have a bigger goal in their life than just each other.
Yes.
I believe that that's important for a healthy life as an individual. And then the relationship can amplify that for each partner instead of stifle it or change it or suppress it.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to clarify, though.
I get it. Okay.
And you're right. I'm not talking about children in the sense of healthy, sustained relationships. Healthy, sustained relationships can start when people are really young, but children don't often have the capacity to understand concepts like we're discussing today.
Yep.
If they do, awesome.
Yeah. Do you want to bring in some of those other points that you said you had to that really supported this?
Well, I had actionable steps for understanding if you are just blindly in love or in a healthy, sustained relationship, which I think is poignant, and it goes hand in hand with these 4 points that we've been discussing. One of the first, if you are unsure and you're wondering, maybe you're just coming off of that chemical cocktail phase, maybe you're in it and you're wondering if it's too good to be true, all valid questions. One of the things you can do is check your pace. Write down how fast the relationship has moved, the emotional openness, physical intimacy, big plans. Then ask, would I be doing this at the same pace if I were feeling calm instead of excited? Blind love looks like rushing, intensity, fantasy, and future planning. Soulmate level connection looks like natural progression and comfort with slowing down. Another thing you can do is leave space for separation. Spend 48 to 72 hours doing your own activities. No texting all day. Notice how you feel. Blind love will feel like withdrawal, like panic, inability to focus, fear they'll lose interest. Soulmate connection, you will miss them, but feel centered. The bond still feels stable. Check for compatibility beyond emotion. Make a list of 5 to 10 non-negotiables. Lifestyle, values, future goals, communication style, boundaries, conflict behaviors. Then ask, does this person actually align with these? Not just make me feel amazing? In blind love, you avoid thinking too deeply or make excuses for misalignments. Soulmate level alignment shows up in actions, not just feelings. Observe your conflict response. Next time there's tension, consciously step back and note how both of you behave. In blind love, conflict is avoided, minimized, or becomes overly dramatic. In soulmate level connection, conflict is approached with curiosity, repair, and respect. Check your authenticity. Write down the ways you've changed your behavior around them. Mark which one feels like growth versus self-erasure. In blind love, you hide flaws, walk on eggshells, or reshape yourself to keep their interest.
Yeah.
In soulmate level, you feel more you, relaxed, honest, and open. Another one is to check how you function outside the relationship. For a week, rate your focus, sleep, appetite, and work quality and social engagement on a 1 to 10 scale. In blind love, everything else collapses to make room for the emotional high of the relationship. In a soulmate level connection, the relationship adds energy to your life instead of consuming it. And another one, check if they're your safe place or your high. After spending time together, journal, do I feel calm or addicted? And be honest. You have to be, if you actually care about understanding this stuff in yourself, be honest with that question.
Yeah.
In blind love, they feel like a high. In a soulmate level connection, they feel like home. Last but not least,
And that
now.
can be hard for people to distinguish if they don't really have a reference.
Totally.
Like if all you've experienced is blind love and you're trying to question whether or not this is soulmate love or just cocktail that you're on, when you don't have a reference, it's hard. And sometimes something like that may be more beneficially done by having somebody to go through the inquiry with.
That leads me to another point. Ask trusted people. And that's a hugely good point. Depending on how we've grown up and what our relationship to relationships are, this might not be intuitive. That's why it's important to look at all of these things. Re-listen to this list. Go through all of it and kind of put pieces from each together to see what kind of picture it paints. Don't necessarily rely on one or the other alone. You can ask trusted people. Choose 1 or 2 people who know you well and are honest. Ask them, do I seem grounded or swept up? What do you notice? In blind love, you avoid asking because you're afraid of what they might say. Yeah. In soulmate connection, feedback doesn't feel threatening. And then the last one I wanted to share was listen to your body. Pay attention to sensations. When you're with them, do you feel tightness, jitteriness, or ease, warmth, and relaxation? Your body often notices red or green flags before your mind does.
Yep.
And one thing I just wanted to add to just personally is ask yourself if you're inspired. Healthy, sustained relationships require mutual respect.
Yeah. So much to try to take on there.
Re-listen. Listen again. Listen again. Listen again.
Yeah, I guess that's the best advice for something. That's a long list. And the thing I would recommend is not doing all of them.
Not all at once.
But pick 3 that really resonate with you and work through those 3, and then maybe another 3 or so. I don't know actually how many there were, but I mean, yeah, don't overwhelm yourself. You're not going to be able to do that. Because
the truth is some of the answers might not be what you want them to be.
Yeah, right. But that's the purpose of this inquiry is, what path am I on? I mean, if I were doing the inquiry, it'd be like, well, what path am I on? Am I on a path that is short-lived and that at the end of it possibly is a cliff? Or am I on a path that has longevity built into it, security built into it? Which one of those 2 do I want to choose? And then intentionally go that route, because some people don't want that longevity. That's not who they are.
Totally.
And if you think that what the path you're on is a short-lived one, and depending on then how you engage in that relationship determines whether there's a cliff or not.
Right. And I think what that goes back to for me is you might be aware that the relationship you're in, it could be healthy, but it might not be sustainable if you're conscious and aware of what's going on. But ultimately, if it's not something will continue, then it's still important to have, and you're aware of that, then you're having a sustained, healthy relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Which is critical in order to have it with someone else too.
Absolutely. It's first base. You can't go on, can't proceed.
And none of this is like, oh, I can just go start doing that. I mean, this stuff, to have a healthy, sustained relationship, you have to have a healthy relationship with yourself in terms of being able to be honest with yourself, being able to be aware of yourself and how you show up and where your emotions come from, where your triggers come from, what you're looking for in life, what you want in life, what you don't want in life. Are you willing to stick up for what you don't want and what you do want? Right. All of that goes into it.
Right. And none of that is accessible without intentional focus and genuine work to dive into it and learn about yourself.
So I think a good kind of circle back is that this doesn't just come because you felt the spark.
Right. No.
Which is a common misconception, because it's easy to think, oh, I feel this spark, then I'm going to have all of this other stuff.
Right. All it is a possibility.
Yeah.
When you experience the spark, there's the possibility that this is there. But if you haven't done your own work and you aren't conscious enough about what has to be present and sustained for this to move out of the phase of short duration, you can't intentionally move in a direction that you want if you haven't set yourself up for it.
Yeah. One thing I want to add too is if you're listening and you would like a healthy, sustained relationship in your life, you deserve it.
Everybody deserves that. Yeah.
We do. But it does take work, and it's not something you just get. It's something you earn. And you earn it by understanding yourself first.
Right. And a lot of our previous topics have been really aspects of that kind of work, getting to understand ourselves better, looking at our fears and looking at our desires and all of that stuff. And I believe that's like a never-ending process, and that there's a never-ending plethora of ways to do it.
And every time I feel like I've got my life figured out, it flips on its head.
Oh, yeah. Life is good at that.
Because every time you level up, then you face new challenges. And you can either look at that as a blessing or a curse. But I think it's important to at least entertain the idea that it's a massive blessing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, well, we are
just about a time now.
Nearing the end of today's episode, so we will share gratitude.
Yeah.
I know that I'm really grateful for today because I came into the studio super hot today, super charged. I was frustrated with life, felt super shaky and vulnerable, and I was able to openly express that with Ian. He is a trusted person, and thank you for helping me see myself in a bigger picture than the way I was seeing it in the moment. So and then we had a really cool conversation, which always feels expansive, and I feel much better about myself in life.
First of all, you're very welcome. I feel honored to be able to be in your life and support in that way.
I'm kind of hot-headed. I feel like I come into the studio hot, so I'm kind of a lot.
I don't know about a lot, but I guess hearing what you're grateful for, what I just got clear about for myself is just having this gratitude for how much energy and effort I've put into the work on myself. And in doing that, having been able to build some experience in doing the same for others. And loving that it just gets to pour out of me when somebody close to me, I can be in service to them in that way. And I just have a lot of gratitude that's inside of me now. And it doesn't take anything for me to share, but yet it's so rich that I get to.
Well, for me, it's thank you.
Yeah.
I resonate with that experience too, because to be able to share, I think it's a lot easier to help someone else than it is to help ourselves. But it's very enriching to give energy to nourish. I think it's very nourishing for ourselves to help nourish others in a healthy way.
Yep. Agreed.
Agreed. All right, everyone. Well,
thanks for your time. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Tune in next time. Go. If you haven't done this already in life, get a journal. That could be a 3-ring notebook. That could be a piece of paper. Start writing things down. If you have a question, write it down and start writing what comes from it, and start cultivating awareness around yourself and your thoughts and where they come from and why, and just know that you're totally worth all of it.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay, bye.